I would like to show you something to see if you know what the object is. It was one Sunday morning, someone said to me, "Do you know what this is?" And I was able to answer them, but I wonder, are you? Someone might say, well, it's a big needle for some of us whose eyesight isn't so good, for sewing or whatever. And that's a half-truth in a sense. It is a needle, but it's called a packing needle. And you mightn't see them as often today. They had a particular function many years ago, especially on farms or elsewhere. If I could just explain this way. Many things came in bags, a bit like this one. Contents, meal, other things, even barley, before the modern scene had touched life. And quite often in a bag like this, as you can see, you get a weak spot. There's one there already starting. And when you got a hole, you just didn't do what we do today and throw it to the side, but you used a packing needle. And basically you were trying to, what they used to say, darn it, the way people darn socks. Only this is the thread. The thread being what used to be called baler twine. That would have been the rope that went around old bales of hay to hold them together. And you would have threaded it like this. Then you'd have gone to your hole and you literally patched it. That's why you can see the wee curve on the needle. So it could go through harder surfaces than just an ordinary needle going through cloth. It was a time when you patched, as we say, you made do and mend, and things were not thrown away. We have lost that concept. We tend to just throw things away when we think they're done, rather than say, well, maybe I could get a bit more life out of it. And on farms, you'd have found with bags such as these, perhaps a mouse got into it or made a hole, and rather than discard the bag, you tended to, as I say, put a patch on it using this, and it was mended. Jesus was someone, when he spoke, he tended to use images, pictures from everyday life. And in Mark's Gospel, chapter 2 in the New Testament, Jesus wants to explain something by telling us a little bit like this. He said, imagine, instead of a bag, you have an old coat, and the coat has got a hole in it. What do? Well, you patch it. But the problem is, if you put a patch of unshrunk cloth on top of a coat, an old coat, and then if the rain hits it or it's being washed, the cloth that's new and unshrunk will start to contract, and it'll end up maybe making a bigger hole than when you first began. Jesus in that same passage goes on to talk about putting wine in bottles. Only the bottles in those days were wine skins. He said, imagine getting a batch of new wine with all the gas starting to come from it, and you put it inside an old wine skin. The wine skin had become tighter. It had become well used. There wasn't much stretch or elasticity in it, and therefore the problem: put new wine in an old wineskin bottle, the gas will build up and the whole thing will crack. Rather, you put new wine in a new wineskin that was fresh and had that elasticity so that it would go along with the gas inside. So Jesus just taught those two things about all that he was bringing to life. And he wants us to remember that with his kingdom and his message and what he wants to offer us, then you can't really take it and just patch it onto the old. And while patching can be good in everyday life for a while, patching never fully lasts either. And Jesus in particular, speaking about life and his kingdom and faith and belief, said, you can't add me as a patch onto just the way we live, as if Jesus were a latter thought, something to add on. Rather, said Jesus, I come with something new. And therefore I come into a person's life to change them from the inside out. My message and my very presence can't be seen as an addition to life, but rather a new life itself. And he calls us to believe in him and begin to see that change that works its way through every aspect of our living, of our values, of our spending, and especially in our hearts. Jesus later said, I have come to bring you life, new life in all its fullness. And that's what he presents in the message that he shared. And above all, through his death and resurrection, he makes it possible. So, when I go back to the sack, it's probably good to mend things. And maybe we, with the current economic situation that looms ahead, will have to learn to make do and mend. But even when you patch something like this, it has a limited life. And sometimes the patch can pull away and everything's worse than it was before. Sometimes also during this crisis, we ask ourselves, well, where is God? Or how does God influence our lives? And we need to be sure that God isn't taking us just a patch to where we are, so that we pick up where we left off, and he is just an addendum, something patched on. But rather, he tells us, in all these difficult circumstances at the moment, where things are dark and uncertain, trust me, believe me, embrace me, and you will find that my kingdom is new, and it's new in every aspect. Just don't patch me onto an old life.